Aulak.
Hi guys, welcome to the Symposium. Welcome back to You Can't Podcast with Kids. I'm happy to be joined again by the boys, except for Calvin, who's actually just a bit delayed, so he'll join in a bit. So Arjun, Lawrence, how are you? How have you been the last few days? How's lockdown?
Not bad. Just chilling out. Not much to do, really. Haven't really done much since we last spoke.
Yeah, there's not really much to do. I mean, I have to confess, I've listened to the first episode at least like 3 times, just to analyze my performance.
Yeah. That sounds good. So I guess we should just jump straight into it then. So I guess I direct a question to you first, and Lawrence. Any thoughts on the initial midweek results and any things that jump out to you? Any signs?
I think, last night United beating Brighton 3-0 was the most complete performance under Ole Gunnar Solskjaer so far. I mean, we've had great results against City, PSG, but in terms of the way we, first of all, defended, and then more importantly, the way in which we went forward, it was extremely impressive. Bruno Fernandes looks like an absolutely fantastic player. And yeah, just the way we played just reminded me of the United of old, which I've said so many times over the years, but since Fergie retired. But I think now finally the signs are looking good.
Yeah, I mean, it looked like to me from the brief bits that I watched and when I watched the highlights that maybe Fernandes could bring out the best of Pogba potentially, but something that's considered the holy grail for United that has been that they've struggled to find ever since they kind of re-signed him. And if Fernandes can kind of unlock the potential of Pogba, then that's a really quite dangerous team for next year. Although I would say, I wonder what Arjun would think. I do say that I don't think United defensively are good enough yet to mount a title challenge.
Yeah, I don't think so. I think they need a really strong centre-back still to partner with Maguire. I'm not really convinced by their defence either. But I'm getting quite worried about how they seem to be putting away these results against smaller teams, teams in the lower half of the table. They seem to be getting more secure at playing against them and beating them quite easily. I'm not calling them flat track bullies yet because they also do turn up against the big teams. But what we did see with Mourinho and Van Gaal was United would often struggle at home, particularly against these smaller teams. And now they just seem to be putting them away quite easily. So it's a bit concerning as a fan of a rival.
I think the real success that Solskjaer has had and why the results have kind of turned around is that he's finally figured out a good balance of the midfield. I'm looking at Matic in particular, who last night had one of his best games in the United shirt for a while. It was kind of seen that his time at United was done before this season. But now that he doesn't have to bear the brunt of creativity in the side, he can just sort of lay the ball off to Pogba and Fernandes. He sort of can provide better balance defensively, and yeah, he does look a much better player.
And also the partnership between Pogba and Bruno seems to be blossoming. And then you've got the attackers, Greenwood, Rashford, Martial. It's quite a scary attack. And as I mentioned in the pod the other day about how I think they're the 6th most prolific attack in Europe. In terms of the trio of Martial, Greenwood and Rashford, it's quite worrying.
Greenwood, I think, is a brilliant prospect. He has a lot of potential, and I think I'm surprised United haven't actually gone with him more this season, and instead of maybe gone for more safe options or maybe kind of older veteran players. Lawrence, what do you think is the kind of ceiling on Greenwood's potential?
Well, I think first of all, the goal he scored last night is becoming a bit of a trademark. He's like the little shimmy to the left, and then like the quick near post shot, FIFA 12-esque. I think that he's been used relatively sparingly this season by Ole. Just because, and Solskjaer said this himself, he's still a very young player. And I mean, you call them veterans, but Martial and Rashford are only like 22 and 23.
Comparative.
Yeah. So I think that the it's not wise to give Greenwood too much game time because he can burn out, and when we do have very strong options in the side, I think certainly his development isn't being stunted. Although I'm interested to see what kind of game time he gets given next season, for sure.
I mean, I guess my kind of position, I think Arjun would agree, is that I'd much rather, from a United perspective, I think you'd much rather watch and have Greenwood playing than Dan James, who I feel last night especially would have just consistently just run into a brick wall. Like, he'd run his heart out and he'd do it very quickly, but I don't think he would have actually made anything happen, and I don't think he would have, taken the game to the next level. I mean, Arjun, I think you kind of share those sentiments about Dan James.
Yeah, I'm not really convinced by him. He seems to be a bit of a pace merchant, but I think Greenwood has properly solidified his place in the starting 11 over Dan James. I don't see how Solskjaer can't start Greenwood anymore. And I was also wondering, in terms of playing style, he sort of reminds me of Van Persie, Greenwood, in terms of the way he controls the ball, the way he shimmies and really runs at defenders.
That's high praise. So I mean,
Lawrence, like Van Persie, Greenwood is very comfortable with both his feet. Your point on Dan James, I kind of have to agree, because last night Dan James actually came on in the last few minutes, and then because United was kind of controlling the game, he got a lot of the ball, and I think there was a time when he had two big chances to run at the opposition in a minute, and both the times he just sort of wasted the opportunity with kind of a mishit shot, and it kind of indicates to me, at least, that James is not the finished product. That's
an understatement.
Yeah.
But I mean, Arjun, do you had something to say about Palace and Burnley?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you guys watched this game. I watched about 20 minutes of it. I just found it a very interesting game, because you've got two teams here who, before the game, were on 42 points each, both with outside chances of qualifying for Europe. And now Burnley, with that winner, I think level on points with Spurs, effectively in the running for a Europa League place now. And I find it interesting how Burnley, we sort of criticised them for their playing style, how they sort of seem to be what Stoke were about half a decade ago. And I think the Premier League is better to have them in it, because every league needs a team like Burnley, a Getafe, a Stoke, to
put it crudely, like a kind of shithousing team.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So whilst their games might not be very interesting, I think the Premier League is richer for having them in it.
I mean, I think I'd agree. I mean, Lawrence, you had a kind of broader point you wanted to make about comparing United and Arsenal, especially in their games against Brighton.
Yeah, I think, so Arsenal are playing Norwich tonight, and ordinarily you'd think Arsenal, playing bottom of the table Norwich, probably have an easy time of it. But it's just their defensive frailties that mean that, you kind of question whether they have the goods to get a result against them. And we discussed how good United were, how professional they looked last night against Brighton, and then you look at Arsenal's result against Brighton a few weeks ago, where they lost 2-1. They just absolutely fell apart to Neil Maupay and Aaron Connolly. I mean, they're not the most fantastic of strikers, but
when you're depending on Mustafi to be the heart and soul of your defence, I guess that's what you kind of expect to happen.
Yeah, and before I sort of launch into my scathing criticism of Arsenal, it's important to mention that they've kind of been in this sort of transition/crisis mode for so long. The last time you could say that they truly challenged for the title was in 2007, 2008, where they completely bottled the race halfway through the season. So it's been, 10, 11 years since you can say that they were properly challenging, and I'd say Arsenal fans would say that means that kind of they're not at the level they want to be. And after the meh period of Unai Emery's tenure, Arsenal were kind of looking for a stable, long-term project. And they couldn't get Guardiola, so they got his right-hand man, Arteta. And people thought, okay, Arteta, he's got a solid philosophy. Maybe he can sort out the defence and definitely look better going forward. And you would say, like, before lockdown, they were doing quite well, right? They were unbeaten in 2020, 13-game run. And you say they were on the up, but then the restart happens, crisis happens, the restart happens, and then they start off with two kind of terrible performances against Brighton and City. I mean, just shocking defending. I mean, David Luiz was the meme of the week, but there were just terrible defensive performances all over the park. And then since then, I mean, they have beaten below average Southampton and Sheffield sides, but still in those games you see like the defensive frailties they have. Like against Sheffield, they conceded 3 set piece goals. I mean, 2 of them were disallowed by VAR, but the goal that did stand was like a terrible piece of defending. It was a long throw into the box, and Granit Xhaka clears it straight into Rob Holding's face, and then they score. I mean, it's just horrible. I mean, they just have, as been said before, like a lack of character throughout the defense. Socrates, Mustafi, David Luiz, Holding, Chambers. None of them fill you with confidence, right?
I mean, are any of them actually defenders?
Yeah, I'm just going to say, just as Lawrence is slating Arsenal, it's obviously the case that Cal, the Spurs fan, turns up all guns blazing. So yeah, welcome to Cal in slightly late to the podcast. Sorry, Lawrence, carry on.
No. Yeah, they have this Saliba guy coming next season. I mean, he's a young guy, and I don't expect him to make an instant impact. And it just seems like Arsenal need to just buy somebody who has proven defensive credentials.
Just like to say that Liverpool had this kind of massive issue as well for like many years, and we couldn't defend well from the Rodgers days through the early days of Klopp. Like I remember 3-0 up at half time at Seville, and then 3-3 at the end of the game, and it was just because we just had zero defensive ability. And then what we did was essentially what you're telling Arsenal to do, just bought a seasoned centre back in Van Dijk. And then afterwards, after the Karius debacle, bought a brilliant goalkeeper, just as 2 massive investments. And obviously it's just paid off, hasn't it? So I think that their kind of Arsenal's attempt to kind of manufacture a defence from bits and bobs and spare pieces is not gonna work.
Yeah. And speaking of transfer policy, the uncertainty around the club is frankly astonishing. Like club captain Aubameyang looks like he doesn't want to be on the pitch anymore, probably going to leave with 12 months left on his contract. And by the way, like if you look at Arsenal's list of previous captains, it's kind of astonishing how many of them have left the club or looking to leave the club under like acrimonious circumstances. You're looking at Koscielny, Ramsey, etc. And then you look at the players that are getting contract extensions, David Luiz, for example, and you're just questioning like what purpose does that solve? He's not the player who's going to marshal your defence for the next 4 or 5 years. And meanwhile, we have this uncertainty about Ozil. Saka's contract is about to expire and they still haven't extended yet. And Guendouzi looks like leaving as well. It just all looks like a complete shambles. And I think that with other clubs improving, as we said this week and last week, Chelsea, United, Arsenal are just going to keep falling behind. And it feels like the position that they're in now, mid-table, is a position that they're just going to just stay in for the foreseeable future, without massive changes at the club.
Well, that's a terrifying prospect for Arsenal fans. I mean, Arjun, you had something to say about Saliba?
Yeah, I mean, Lawrence brought him up. Interesting signing, very promising young player. There's been a bit of controversy about him, I think today or yesterday. So Saint-Etienne wanted him to extend the loan. So they bought him in January, Arsenal, and they loaned it back to Saint-Etienne. And the French club wanted the loan to be extended until the end of July, so that Saliba could play in the French Cup final against PSG on, I think, the 23rd or 24th of July.
Yeah.
But Arsenal wanted him to follow a specific training program that they tailored exactly for him. And basically there was a breakdown in negotiations about this, and Etienne wanted Saliba to follow their own training program. So it ended with Saliba just returning to Arsenal, not being able to play in the French Cup final. So a breakdown in relationships between the two clubs. However, in terms of the actual signing of Saliba, a very good signing. He's played about 12 games in Ligue 1 this season due to injury, but they had a better record with him in the team than they did without it. And as a consequence, because of his missed games, they were fighting against relegation this season. But it's not exactly the type of signing that Arsenal need in terms of they brought a really good young defender. That's all well and good, but what they need at the back is some proper experience. A defender of a higher caliber than Saliba, who admittedly has a high ceiling, but right now is he the type of defender they need? I don't think so.
Well, I direct a question to all of you then. Can you give some names of the kind of centre back that Arsenal would benefit from signing? Because obviously, if City and others are after Koulibaly, he's probably not going to go to Arsenal. So, who are realistic and very good targets that Arsenal could acquire to shore up that defence?
Yeah, so on my side, I think you just need an actual defender. Like David Luiz isn't a defender, really.
Right.
In terms of names, I think the caliber of defender they can get realistically will be, French league maybe. But even then, would you trust French defending generally? Probably not.
I'm thinking of a sort of experienced Premier League centre back, someone like Bolly from Wolves, Nathan Ake potentially.
Maybe Nathan Ake, yeah, because of relegation.
Yeah. Oh, that's true.
Yeah. A signing that would make sense on paper in terms of it, I can see Arsenal making it, but perhaps wouldn't make sense from a footballing standpoint, is someone like Jerome Boateng from Bayern Munich.
Yeah, okay.
Someone who was world class a few years ago is way beyond his peak now, over the hill. I could see Arsenal being someone like him in, and it not going very well really. But yeah, they should sign someone like Ake, Willy Bolly from Wolves.
The problem is with the Wolves. With Wolves, they're pushing for Europe. Why would he want to leave? Even as a backup.
Yeah, I know exactly. I mean, I'd actually say I don't think it's particularly close, but I'd say Wolves is a better place to be now than Arsenal. I never thought I'd say that, but I think it's the case. So I mean, moving away from that, then, do you guys have any further interesting predictions for other games in the midweek?
Yeah, it's going to be biased, but I think it's going to be a tight game between Sheffield and Tottenham. But I think Tottenham will edge it 2-0.
Right.
I think that Dyer Sanchez I think will be the starting centre back pairing again.
Okay.
And I think that's gone well in the last two games. Yes, one of the games was effectively against bottom of the league, but it's shown that we can keep a clean sheet now at least. And Sheffield, they're going downhill. They've not been good since the restart. So I think that's my prediction for sure.
How do you feel as a Spurs fan about the development of Dyer as perhaps someone who was perhaps a solid CDM? Moving backwards a bit into a CB, and do you think he can manage there consistently at Premier League level?
Yeah, so at Sporting Lisbon, he was a centre-back. It was only because we were lacking a defensive midfield that he got pushed to defensive midfield.
Right.
So in terms of natural position, yeah, I don't see a problem of him playing centre-back. In terms of what a Premier League standard, we've not seen it yet, but we know that Dyer has a mistake in him every so often. So we'll see how he manages, really, as we play stronger opposition.
Lawrence, Arjun, any further games? I mean, Arjun, would you like to preview the Chelsea game?
Yeah, West Ham away. I think we should come through this fairly easily. I'm interested in looking at how Declan Rice plays in central midfield for West Ham. He's been linked with us quite heavily. I think the rumours have slowed down a bit, but I still want to see how he plays. I think we should win this, to be honest. But
I think you should be smashing them.
Yeah. I think a narrow 2-0, 2-1 sort of win. But the interesting game from a neutral standpoint is Everton-Leicester. Leicester have sort of had an alarming slide since the restart. And if they don't pick up a win from this game, which is quite hard, I don't see them finishing top four.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting.
Picking up the points quite regularly now.
Yeah, I think it's interesting to contrast those teams that perhaps came out the restart flying, and those which are kind of stuttered, maybe because they had good momentum that was stilted, or they just didn't approach coronavirus in the right way. So I mean, you can compare maybe Leicester and Sheffield with perhaps Wolves or Chelsea or United as teams that have got solid momentum that can keep moving forward. I mean, Lawrence, do you have any interesting predictions tonight about or tomorrow?
Well, I think even though the title race is done, the City-Liverpool game will still be quite an interesting one to watch, if not just because of the quality of the two teams. City still have some sort of point to prove. They want to prevent Liverpool from reaching their highest ever points total, the 100-point mark. But I personally, I really hate the fact that City are going to give Liverpool a guard of honour. I hate that whole tradition. It's like you can just tell Guardiola's just gonna be like giving like a muted round of applause through gritted teeth. Like he is angry about this season. Like the whole City squad is. It's a pretty sort of fake gesture in my opinion.
Well, I mean, from my perspective, especially considering the Sterling Gomez debacle, you can understand it's very satisfying.
Yeah, it's satisfying for Liverpool fans, but who cares?
What do you think the result will be though? Because I think City are going to want to prove a point, and go guns blazing in that game.
Yeah, I mean, I honestly think it will be, from a Liverpool perspective, I'd honestly say a 1-1 draw. Because I think although City will come out with a kind of point to prove, I think we can fully withstand them. And I know, I'm certain now with Liverpool that we will get at least 20, 30 minutes of solid ball possession where we can do what we like, regardless of what City do. So I think as a result of that, they won't be able to dominate us, definitely. And if they do win, I don't think it'll be more than a 1-goal difference.
Yeah, I think, personally, I think City will win. Not just because I'm definitely biased, but I'm just glad now that Liverpool are no longer the team which is like, they've got Klopp and they're so likeable. Now they're the team to beat. Everyone will go back to hating Liverpool, and I'm living for it.
Fine. I mean, considering the steps that it's taken to get to that stage, i.e. winning the league, I'm perfectly happy with that situation. I guess Lawrence or Arjun or any of you actually, you had some questions you wanted to ask about Liverpool or just discuss more generally about the title. So, I mean, do you have any further questions you'd like to know about Liverpool, the development of the squad?
Personally, I'd rather not talk too much about Liverpool. So that I don't get annoyed. Yeah.
Yeah, I just think because Liverpool recently won the title and we didn't really spend that much time on them last time, I thought we might as well give Ashford a little bit of time to gloat because it's only fair. Until next season when.
Thank you, Lawrence. I'll buy you a pint when the pub's open.
So
Saturday.
Go on, Calvin. Go on, Calvin.
I was gonna say Super Saturday. You owe him that pint. But
yeah.
But no, I was gonna say you've been unplayable at times this season.
Yeah.
I mean, even I thought there might be the glimmer of hope when you finished just before lockdown losing 3-0 to Watford. Obviously, at that point, so far ahead.
Like 20 points ahead.
Yeah.
So
That's the problem.
It was too late by then, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I was going to say that one of the main things I've noticed about the development of the squad after watching them very closely, obviously, for the last 3 or 4 years is looking at kind of, especially describing United. We said an issue with United was they couldn't really get through lower league teams or lower Premier League teams while they were at home, to kind of sitting back and breaking them down. And that was always kind of Liverpool's problem before before last season, really, where we smashed the top 6 or we'd always come out against anyone all guns blazing. But if a team with decent discipline chose to sit back in a good shape, we'd always struggle to kind of break them down in any meaningful way. And I think the kind of development where we've not thrown all our weapons out straight away, not throwing the kitchen sink at everyone immediately, but we've held some stuff back, which means that we do have the capacity and the creativity to break down those teams that seek to sit back, and that means that we can grind out results in a way we couldn't previously. Yeah. I think once United or other teams develop that, that's a good sign that you can have a go at the league, because you can go for 4th if you just kind of win contested games and you can press hard and you get through those games, but you'll fall down by not winning, maybe Burnley away when it's they're choosing to sit back and it's cold and there's just no way to get through. So I think that's an important part of development in the squad.
I think also having options on the bench, you can always bring someone on to change the shape and whatnot.
Yeah.
Whereas Tottenham, what do we have? We can add an extra defender. That's not going to help in the situation.
Well, I mean, you missed out on Bruno Fernandes because you were too stingy to spend £5 million more. So I mean, that's on you, honestly.
Funny you say that. So there's a list of players that we could have got. Okay, so Grealish, Bruno Fernandes, Dybala, Mane, Van Dijk. We can go further back and even go Hazard,
Willian,
Frenkie de Jong. The list goes on.
I mean, but that's what you get when you start to sting for every penny, and essentially you just miss out and you miss the wider picture of perhaps the person will grow in value and be worth more than even the 5 million extra you spent.
Fair, I don't necessarily think it's being stingy on the extra 5 million is what we then chose to spend on after. Like could find by not buying Mane, we got Son. I don't say that's a bad move by us. I think that was a good move because Son was really cheap.
Yeah, no, Son's good.
But like for example, okay, yeah, so we got Sanchez in for like 40-ish million instead of Van Dijk. Like fine, Sanchez could develop into a good player, but he was not the finished product.
Just to move the conversation back to Liverpool. As much as I loathe to do so, I just want to know, Ash, like, because it's been 30 years since Liverpool won the top. I mean, you haven't been alive for 30. Not to give away your year, your age or anything.
It's one of his security questions.
But sort of you haven't seen a Premier League title for Liverpool in your lifetime. Like, how did it feel after that City-Chelsea match when it was
obviously very, very weird because of the gap, because of the lockdown. So we'd obviously all known before the lockdown that we were going to probably, like, very likely win it. And it was just kind of being stuck in that stasis for a couple of months that made it probably different. I mean, I obviously can't say it for certain because I haven't seen a normal season where we've won it, but probably different to a season where, you know, the games just come thick and fast and you get to experience it. So it was weird having to kind of sit on those feelings during lockdown and kind of know it was going to happen, but then not know for sure. And then it was always a bit nerve-wracking and scary because there was a brief period where the season might have been cancelled or done in a points per game, which would left an asterisk. Whereas now it's kind of, you know, pretty sure, you know, it's not really got an asterisk next to it, which I guess is satisfying.
Still some emotion, right? Because I remember you messaging me saying, "Oh, there's a couple tears coming out."
Yeah. You know? I mean, it was obviously it was very emotional because I've seen so much crap. To be frank, like I've seen like I've been alive for like what 21 years. That's my age. Hello. But then I've seen like so many crap teams. Like even the year that we won the Champions League in 2005, I think Everton finished ahead. I think we came 5th, and then after that we were kind of 4th or 3rd every year.
What do you mean David and Gog is a good place? Not one. What?
and you know, like we had a couple of quality seasons like 2013-14 and then 2008-9 where we became 2nd, but always something kind of went wrong. And you know there are some quality highlights like when we won Old Trafford 4-1 in 2008 and 2009, but like it didn't really mean anything because in the end you won the league by like 4 points in the end. Just we kept drawing games at home, so there was always like that final hurdle. And if I could have traded the Champions League last year for the Premier League, I definitely would have. And it was just satisfying that it kind of felt like a curse that kind of Murphy's Law around Liverpool that finally ended. And just the transition. I can't emphasize it enough how crap we were under Hodgson, under Dalglish. I think Dalglish, we had like 46 points that one year. We came like 9th or something. We won the League Cup.
To sort of detract from the loving that's happening here, in a team that this season has been full of sort of outstanding attacking superstars, hard-working, all-action midfielders, and dependable substitutes, who's been your sort of flop of the season in the squad? Who's been your disappointment of the season?
Right, so I don't think we've had any flops like in the same way that Arsenal have, for example. I don't think you can.
But they're a team of flops. So
yeah. But I mean, in terms of an individual that I don't think has performed up to their potential. Okay, I think Shaqiri but that's just partly because of injury, not really his fault. In that when he was on against United last year, I think a 3-1 at Anfield, and then when he was on in the 4-0 against Barcelona at Anfield, he was quality, like putting quality balls into the box, quality assists, running at people, finishing off moves, slotting, you know, goals away. And I thought that he would have been a quality bargain for 12 million, but he's just struggled with his fitness massively. So that's kind of almost a flop. And then Naby Keita, to be honest, before the lockdown, I didn't get the hype. Like his stats were always quality, dribbling stats, winning the ball back, beating people, passing stats. But then, you know, when you actually watched him, he didn't seem to be particularly good at all. But then since the lockdown, and I watched the highlights of one of the warm-up games, I think it was against Blackburn or someone, just before the restart. He was quality. He was running at people, running past people, shrugging people off, distributing balls quickly, and perhaps he's maybe turned a corner. I mean, but
Musa says okay.
Yeah.
Say.
Oh right. Okay. Thanks for that, Cal.
But
then, you know, even then, like with his improvement, I'm not sure if he was fully worth the money because he doesn't really get into our best midfield, which I think is still Henderson, Wijnaldum, Fabinho, and Fabinho is quality. Like honestly. Before he got injured in November, where he kind of and he had to recover. But since he's had time to recover, literally, he shrugs off people. He distributes the ball beautifully. He breaks up play. He's disruptive. He's kind of everything you kind of want. He's like Paul Scholes, but nowhere near as experienced. Obviously, nowhere near as many accolades, but he has the same kind of fundamentals, and it's really good to see.
Goals.
Yeah, you say he's not worth the money. So how much was he again? Just
Keita was 40 million plus, I think 45ish.
okay.
Yeah.
Look how quickly he changes the conversation. You know, it's like, who's your flop? Let me just talk about Fabinho. You know, he's oh, look how great our team is.
If you guys have like opinions on which Liverpool players you think have been flops under Klopp, I mean, I'd like to know. I mean, Karius obviously.
Yeah, but he's not in your squad anymore.
No, exactly. So I didn't really want to mention.
Technically, he is today. He returned back to the club today, 1st of July.
Didn't Arjun bottle the Champions League against Atletico Madrid?
No, I think that was an overall crap. Yeah. But even then, I can't complain. As a backup goalkeeper, considering how many Prem games we won and the fact that although he made a couple of mistakes, he pulled off some quality close range saves. As a backup goalkeeper, I can't really complain because he wasn't obviously playing as the starter. I don't think you can really expect more from a backup, to be honest. I mean, do you disagree?
No. So who do you think has been your player of the season?
Well, I think our best player is genuinely Virgil van Dijk, but in terms of the player of the season, this season specifically, probably Hendo, because although he's not got the ability of Virgil or just the pure class of Alisson or Salah, he like works his heart out. He epitomizes everything about the club that the fans love, and he's pretty essential to the way we play just because of the amount of energy he puts in, and he runs, and because everyone else to keep the shape, then everyone kind of runs with him, and he really dictates the pace of the press, and you really notice it when he's not there. So yeah, I'd probably say just because of everything he's done that he's got to be up there as the player of the season. I think kind of expanding it further, I think United and Chelsea can definitely look at Liverpool as kind of models to develop their squad. So maybe.
Oh, for God's sake!
No. I think Tottenham should have done because you lost a final. You bought what you needed. We lost a final. We sold players.
I mean,
difference.
And also, I mean, Lawrence, you can explain. I mean, I think United are like one Virgil van Dijk level signing away, and depending on how good you think De Gea is, maybe one goalkeeper away from fully being quite formidable.
Yeah, so yesterday he was good. He was doing nothing all day, and then suddenly one shot that was really good, mate saved it.
Yeah, but to be fair, De Gea makes a lot of ordinary saves look like absolute world beaters. Like that's kind of his character trait.
I guess the question is that I have from Liverpool's development is that we kind of secured Andy Robertson, quality signing for nothing, but then you have like your Luke Shaw, maybe he's probably good enough at that position. AWB seems like a quality signing, but then I guess you're missing a centre back. So I mean, the question then arises: who do you think you should spend that money on?
I think what Liverpool have done with their recruitment and FSG has been quite admirable. They've concentrated a lot on stats-based decisions, which has definitely helped their recruitment. And that was going to be one of my questions about how do you think sort of Klopp has transformed the team, not just like as being a motivator, but also in terms of like his man management and his recruitment. But in terms of what United can do, I mean, as I said last week, I think Ole has taken great steps with the club in terms of recruitment, and it seems much more focused than the signings used to be in the past, which was just like, oh my God, like Schweinsteiger's available, let's get him. Falcao, oh my God, Di Maria, let's just get these players like without any thought about whether they actually sort of fit the United mold or fit the playing style. And I think what Liverpool have done well, and what other clubs can learn from, without sounding like an arrogant Liverpool fan, is just that kind of focused signing. You want a player, you pay 80 million, fine, but you get that player. In terms of how Liverpool have done, I don't think we paid enough attention to the manager, because I think Klopp is clearly, I mean, as much as I hate to say, he's a very likable guy, and he's kind of seen as this great motivator of players, with his energy, his passion. Is that the only thing he brings to the table for Liverpool, do you think, or is there something more?
Well, I think what we've kind of seen is he's got, obviously, as you say, brilliant man management skills, and he's able to kind of genuinely, I think something that's not really seen as much in the modern game, especially maybe since Mourinho last 10 years, is, or maybe Guardiola actually is a good example of someone who's actually a genuinely good coach. Like, he makes players better instead of, maybe what we saw with specifically United, where they try and buy ready-made players and drop them in. I think with Klopp, he actually is able to buy. I think Gary Neville described it yesterday as basically saying he takes 30 million players and makes them into 130 million pound players, where essentially he can take an unfinished product and then mold them into his system and then make the player fit into the system, and then the team then works underneath the system, which kind of leads to coherent signings, a coherent vision. Because if the system is kind of supreme, then you know what you need to make the system happen, and then you can target specific kinds of players, and that leads to the kind of coherent transfer policy that you've seen. I think FSG definitely have to take some credit, because Liverpool were kind of roasted 6-7 years ago for their transfer committee, which tended to lead to like crap decisions and poor signings. But that committee still exists. It's now headed by Michael Edwards, and he's a quality, shrewd operator, and he never lets himself overpay for anyone and never lets himself buy into the hype, as shown by the signing of Timo Werner and Fekir a couple of years ago. And he's always only looking for value and specific players that we need to improve the squad. Because I think Klopp pays much more attention to kind of things like dressing room dynamic and players' mental states and confidence than other managers do. He'd rather not sign someone for 50 million who could maybe make the team better if it will disrupt the existing dynamic and mentality of some players who have worked hard for him maybe for a few months. So I think that kind of attention to the finer details of man management and genuinely a kind of stats-based analytical approach is something that's really kind of beneficial. But anyway, yeah, I think we should move on now to our new weekly segment that we'll try and do every week to maybe add some spice to the podcast, and that's called Where's Cal?
Where's Wally? Where's Wally? Did you say I'm home? Where is Wally? Where is Wally? Where?
So this game is where we have 10 questions to ask Cal where he is and where his head's at. His head's going to be at a different stadium and club around the world every single week. And we have 10 questions to guess where he is. And we can only really ask yes or no questions. So I guess we'll start with Lawrence. You can ask question 1.
Right, this is quite difficult because, as we know, Cal is an enigma and he could be literally anywhere in the world.
Yeah.
Except he's definitely in the south of England. But no, okay, let's go back to the game. Right, so is your stadium in Europe?
Yes.
Arjun?
Is your stadium in Eastern Europe?
No.
Is your stadium in the UK?
Yes.
Right, shit, that's 3 questions.
That's 3 questions, right.
Right. Is your stadium in the top 2 leagues?
Yes.
Has your stadium been constructed in the 21st century?
Hold a sec, I just want to double check.
He can't have picked his own bloody stadium.
No.
Okay, so it wasn't. Is your stadium in the south of England?
Yes.
Right. Is it in London?
Yes.
Ooh, okay.
Is your stadium in South London?
Hold a sec. I'm pretty sure my knowledge of London is... Depends what you define as south, really. Like south of the river.
South of the river.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's not. Yeah,
Okay.
It's not.
Oh, okay.
Lawrence?
I was going to say, is it the Den? But I think that might be south of the river, actually.
Millwall. Is it the Den, Cal?
No.
Okay.
Unfortunately, that counts as a question.
Yeah,
No,
that
wasn't my bloody question.
No, that wasn't his question. Okay, go on,
Oh.
Lawrence, ask a question. That we won't include that one.
I said I was going to say, but then
Yeah,
I
no,
realised it's south of
No,
the
but
river.
Ash asked it.
Okay, I'll ask it. I'll take that as mine. Right, that's 7. That's Arjun. Lawrence, your question.
Right, so it's like south. It's not south of the river.
No.
It's in the top 2 leagues in London.
Yeah.
Okay, are they in the Championship?
Yep.
Arjun?
Is it Craven Cottage?
Yes.
Oh, well done.
Yeah, I had to
Okay.
check because I knew it was
Well,
really
that's-
close to the river, so I wasn't
Yeah,
sure
it's
which
bang
side.
on. Yeah, it's on the Middlesex side. It's on the north side of the river. Quality,
Anyone
well
beat-
done.
Anyone been to Craven Cottage?
No,
Yeah,
actually.
I have, but
Yeah.
not to watch a Fulham game. It was a Legends game.
Oh, okay.
Fulham
So
Legends.
do they still have that statue of Michael Jackson?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think they do. Yeah.
They're still the same owner, so
Yeah.
Wow.
Really,
I-
really nice stadium. I would recommend going.
Throwback to when Brendan Rodgers wanted to sell Jordan Henderson and replace him with Clint Dempsey from Fulham in like 2012.
yeah. Instead, we took Dempsey.
Oh, wow. Okay. I guess then we just move to our final section today, which is on our favourite England 11s, looking into kind of this year and next year. So I guess we'll just start with you, Lawrence. Do you have a kind of preferred 11 and kind of tell us your formation and roughly who it composes?
Yeah, so I think Southgate is kind of leaning towards the 4-3-3. I mean, obviously transitioned from 5 at the back at the World Cup, and he's moved towards 4-3-3 with kind of like a holding midfielder. And personally, I don't. Whilst there are a number of talented England prospects, I don't see too much revolution within the squad. So I'll just run through my predicted 11 for next year's Euros. Pickford in goal, Alexander-Arnold, right back, centre backs, Maguire, Gomez, left back, Chilwell, holding midfielder, Rice, 2 centre mids, Henderson and Foden, and up front 3 is Sterling, Sancho, Kane. Kane's a bit of a question mark because I think he's kind of declined a little bit over the past half
but
a
you
year.
can't drop him.
But you can't drop you can't drop him with his scoring record for England. So
Right.
that's my
Coven?
Yeah, so my starting 11, I think there's going to be a change in the keepers. Even though it might be unexpected, whether it's Henderson or Pope, we'll see. It's between those two, I think. As you mentioned, 4-3-3, I think that's what it's going to be played. So Trent, I think he's going to go with Gomez, Maguire, and then Chilwell. And then in midfield, it's challenging because I don't think he's going to drop Dele Alli because he's a good fan, even though he's not played well in the past season, really.
Really? Even after this season?
I reckon he's going to show up next season. He always does, you know. He just
Right.
has an off season and comes back.
Okay.
So I think Henderson, Ali, and I think realistically Grealish.
Yeah.
But that position is really up for grabs.
Right.
And then Sancho, Kane, Sterling. I think there's some omissions on my subs bench, but we can go into that once everyone else is.
So you'd rather have Grealish than Maddison, for example?
Yeah, I don't think he's a massive fan of Maddison.
Right.
So
So this
why
is
I think he
what.
makes
So this
it.
is what you. So you're kind of ensuring this is what you think Southgate would do rather than your ideal 11.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Arjun.
I think Henderson in goal would be ideal.
Yeah.
Flat back 4, Trent Alexander-Arnold, Gomez, Maguire, Chilwell. In the midfield 3, Henderson, Rice. And the third spot for me is up for grabs. It could be Dele Alli, Mason Mount, Loftus-Cheek, Maddison. It's sort of up for grabs there. And then the front 3 of Sancho, Sterling and Kane. In terms of notable squad picks that I think the extra year, the year's delay could benefit certain players. I think Saka from Arsenal is quite an interesting prospect. I think he should be the backup left back instead of someone like, say, Danny Rose.
Do you think Danny Rose is going to be the backup?
In terms of left backs, we don't have many backup left backs.
I brought in Shaw just for the but
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, fair enough. And then we've got lots of decent to quality midfielders vying for that third spot alongside Henderson and Rice. So I think, as Lawrence said, we've got Phil Foden, Loftus-Cheek, if he stays away from injury. Barkley, as much as I like to joke about him, he has turned up for England, and Southgate is quite loyal to him. Maddison, Mount, and Dele Alli again. A lot of sort of average players, such as Harry Winks.
okay, yeah. So on that,
Eric
he's
Dyer.
got 100% record for England. Anytime he's played, England have gone on to win the game.
Yeah, but that might just be a fallacy there, Carl. Because
Yeah, it might be, but I looked at the games he played, and then not all like crap.
Carl, no one cares about Harry Winks, mate.
I don't think he'll start. He won't get anywhere near. But
He's also in my squad, but like, okay, I mean,
he can't be starting, Cal. Come on.
No, I agree. He's not going to be starting, but making the squad.
Right, so I'll go for mine. I mean, it's pretty similar to all of yours. I'd probably say Henderson in goal just because I think he deserves it, because Sheffield United have been good all season despite their kind of post-lockdown woes, that I think he's shown good enough quality. Right back, I put Trent, although I think there's a discussion that's worth being had of putting him somewhere else. And then centre-backs, Gomez and Maguire, I think that's solid. Chilwell, yeah, solid left back. And then midfield, I'm happy with kind of maybe Hendo and Rice, but I think against the more weak teams, I'm happy to have one of them, either of them, and then have two more attacking people. So maybe Rice and then Foden and Grealish, or Rice, Foden and Maddison, or Foden and Loftus-Cheek if he's fit, to instead of having, Henderson and Rice together against perhaps the stronger teams where you need more solidity instead of kind of more creativity. So I think we can be flexible about that. And then in terms of the front three, I'd say Sterling, Sancho, Kane is kind of what we're stuck with now, because he can't really drop Kane, and I think Sterling and Sancho are fully should be in the starting 11. So yeah, I don't think we have many differences. I think midfield is probably the most interesting area. I mean, Lawrence, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, just two things. I think first of all, defensive midfielder was kind of a harder decision for me than I guess it was for you guys, because I think Declan Rice has had a below average season for West Ham.
Yeah, I was going to say that. Yeah.
And we don't have that many people in that position. I'm not putting Harry Winks there. I'm sorry. And Eric Dyer has no mobility. So
I wouldn't put Eric Dyer.
Let's just hate on the Tottenham players. But
I wouldn't put him there. I'd put him as a centre back and take him along as the option to play DM if we had injury.
Right. Yeah.
I think that an option that's been bandied around and has been sort of mentioned by Southgate as well has been the Leeds player Calvin Phillips. In CDM, who looks like a good prospect. But as I said before, England have a relatively settled side. I think the Southgate is quite loyal to a lot of his players, and Rice, I think, will retain that starting point come next summer. And I think the second thing that I'd say is you guys went for Henderson or Pope as keepers, and I kind of retained Pickford, because I know he's had kind of a not great season for Everton, but again I think Southgate is quite loyal to his players, and he really likes Pickford's distribution.
Yeah,
so I think that Pickford will stay.
If it was this year, I reckon Pickford gets the nod every day. But because there's a year, he can give a few caps to Henderson and Pope in friendlies, Nations League, etc.
I mean, all I'd say for Pickford is that. Sorry, Lawrence. All I'd say for Pickford is that I can't have him playing for England after he spilled Divock Origi's 89th minute goal under the crossbar in the Merseyside derby, because his arms are so small. So because of that, I've got to go with someone else. I'm sorry, that's probably just Liverpool fan in me talking, but there you go. Arjun, do you want the kind of final word?
I just wanted to talk about players who have potential to break into the squad, in the fringes of the squad in the next year. You can have players like Grealish, like Calvin mentioned. He hasn't been called up to an England squad yet. I think he should be as soon as possible, because I think there's a possibility of him being capped by Ireland. So we need to sort of tie him to England as soon as possible. And then also a player similar to Grealish is Todd Cantwell for Norwich, who's played quite well this season.
Yeah, he's got a lot of transfer interest around him, actually.
Yeah, and when Norwich get relegated, I can see him moving to a bigger club. Also, Dwight McNeil from Burnley has been quite good this season, and again, I can see him moving to a bigger club in the next year or so. And then you have players like Hudson-Odoi, who, if he gets a regular run of games, can be quite effective for England. Remember, this is the player who was capped for England before he started a game for Chelsea.
Yeah, definitely.
And also Tammy Abraham as well, to further my Chelsea bias, should be in and around the squad.
The question,
I think Danny Ings, if Danny Ings keeps up this form, he should definitely be in the squad. Yeah. And potentially starting if Kane has some injury issues.
Calvin?
The question is what do you do about people like Greenwood, who are sort of on the fringes as well? They're still quite young.
Too early.
Yeah. I think it's too early. Yeah. I mean, they can be blooded in with the kind of very good under 21 teams, etc. Or I think that they have good prospects, because people like Ryan Brewster from Liverpool is currently on loan to Swansea. He's scoring a lot of goals, some quality set pieces, and in open play. And I think he still needs to be kind of maybe blooded in a bit more, still recovering from that long-term injury. But so he's definitely, some people like him and maybe Greenwood aren't really ready. I think Rashford. I mean, it's interesting that none of you are starting Rashford.
Well, who would you drop him for? Sancho's the only person you could, but realistically, he's going to stick with Kane, Sterling.
Mm.
I would say potentially drop Sterling for Rashford. I can't see Sancho not being dropped.
So I don't see any of the three getting dropped.
Yeah.
That's the thing.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we can properly drop Sterling either, in that he's now, a high quality PL forward. He scores goals, he gets into good positions. So I mean, perhaps Rashford, but just because that's the most contested and high quality position in the team, he perhaps oddly doesn't really have a place in the starting 11.
Yeah, I mean, Sterling's form has tailed off since the first half of the season, but Rashford is a very good impact sub.
Yeah, I was going to say impact.
Yeah, but if Kane was to be dropped, I feel like Rashford could step in the role. What I was going to ask is sort of the position of the Chelsea English youngsters. So you have like Reece James, Mason Mount, Tammy Abraham. With all these like big signings coming to Chelsea this summer, are they going to have enough game time to warrant a spot at Euro 2021?
I mean, Arjun, are they going to be sent out on reserve like normal?
I don't think so. I think I had Tomori in my squad as a sort of backup centre-back, but that's depending on whether he gets game time. Reece James, I think, will continue to get regular game time in the next season, swapping with Azpilicueta. And if Azpilicueta starts at left back, then starting at right back. Mount has been the only player to play in every game for Chelsea this season. I don't see him going away. Loftus-Cheek obviously had a year out, came back 2 weeks ago. Is now being played regularly. I don't see any of the Chelsea youngsters going out on loan. I think they'll continue to get regular game time. I think Lampard will continue to play them. In terms of Tammy Abraham, for Leipzig, Werner played regularly as a front two, or on the left side drifting into the centre. So I think Lampard will try and pair up Tammy Abraham and Werner as an attacking two to start with. How he does from then on there, I can't tell, but at this point. But I don't think these youngsters will get loaned out or dropped anytime soon.
On a similar note, what do you think is going to happen to Henderson with Man U? Like, because you can't really get rid of De Gea. But
yeah, see, I think that a lot of hype has been made around Dean Henderson, but he's still like an extremely young guy. I could see him going out on loan again because, to be honest, like for one, Solskjaer rates De Gea very highly, and United's clean sheets record hasn't been all that bad. I mean, there's been a couple of high-profile mistakes that De Gea has made, but I think that more time needs to be given for him to find his best form before we can start sort of replacing him in the United's first 11.
If I just like to interrupt, so we Chelsea did a similar thing with Cech and Courtois. Courtois was a very promising keeper, and there's sort of debate over when should we drop Cech and let Courtois take over. And obviously Courtois was loaned to Atletico Madrid for 3 seasons, did immensely well there. I think United would benefit from perhaps loaning out Henderson one more year, maybe to Sheffield United, maybe to a sort of bigger team than Sheffield United, and see how he goes from then on there. Because if De Gea continues like this, I can't really see United persisting with him any further than one more year. I don't know about you guys, especially Lawrence.
No, I think that's probably fair. Lawrence, do you want another final word as we finish up?
Yeah, I think that's a fair point, and United have backups in Sergio Romero and Lee Grant, so I think Dean Henderson would just benefit from getting week in, week out football, which he won't get next season. I think United will give De Gea a bit more time. So yeah, I agree with Arjun. Yeah, loan move seems best.
Right. Well, thank you everyone. I hope you all enjoyed that. I really did. We covered a lot there. We got through it all quite quickly, which is great. I hope you join us next week for the next episode of You Can't Podcast with Kids from the Symposium. So cheers everyone. Bye.
Bye.
The Symposium with Ash Aulak.